Alright, so Record of Ragnarok Chapter 102 preview and prediction video. Of course, obviously some Apocalypse of the Gods talk as well for Chapter 11. If you enjoy the content around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video so you never miss an upload like this and stay up to date with all the Record of Ragnarok news and information. Also, quick shout out to the member Prophet who's been holding it down for 2 months now. But we'll start things off right away with the preview for next month's chapter in the main series, which states, "The secret of Simo Heiha's bullets has been revealed, and is his past deeply connected to it." So it seems like we are going to be getting Simo's backstory this chapter. That's what I assume reading this. And that kind of leads us to believe that there's not going to be much action, not going to be much fighting back and forth. But of course, we'll probably see a little bit of Simo's upbringing because they've already kind of touched on what he's done in the war. Maybe they'll go more into depth on that, but I expect it to be more so an upbringing showcase. Maybe how he gets into the military, maybe things that happened in his life earlier on. We've seen a pretty consistent trend for humanity's fighters that they usually show them as a kid at some point, kind of what leads them down their path in life. Qin Shi Huang, Jack the Ripper, Nikola Tesla, Raiden all come to mind here. So I think that we'll probably see something similar for Simo, potentially something heartbreaking that leads him to really despise the act of killing. One other thing I wanted to touch on is we obviously know that Loki has this ability to create infinite copies when he's wearing the ring. It's told to us that he usually can only spawn 5 copies, but with the sacred treasure, he can spawn infinite amounts. And what we saw them doing was breaking down the forest, getting rid of the cover for Simo and trying to overwhelm him, try to find him that way, but Simo obviously hit his scatter shot, which wiped out the majority of them. The thing is, because we now know that Simo is basically sacrificing his own organs to hit a shot like that, if Loki theoretically just continued spawning infinite copies the same exact way, he probably could outlast Simo. That is a win condition for him. Now, of course, you could say, well, Simo would have to up the ante and just try to hunt down the main body of Loki quicker. I don't think we're going to go down that road anyway, but that is a pathway Loki could go down if he gets the information that Simo is, of course, using his own organs, because I don't think Loki at this point understands what Simo's actually doing. It'll be interesting when he gets that revelation and what he decides to do from that point forward. And a lot of you guys in the comments have been saying that you guys think that this run is going to be short, which makes a lot of sense given that Simo's on a time limit here. The more organs he uses, the harder it's going to be for him to continue fighting. It's definitely sound logic, but you'd be surprised at how long authors can stretch fights that technically take place in a very short period of time within the verse. So we may have multiple chapters of this, and it could draw on for a long time in terms of our time and still be a short fight within the actual verse. This guy says, imagine he uses his skin. That'd be crazy if we see a skinless Simo. But this comment in particular I thought was pretty interesting. This guy theorizes that the power of each shot is weighed depending on how valuable each organ is. And this could be a really cool wrinkle if true. Therefore, if he did have to sacrifice his own life with his heart, obviously the heart would weigh a ton on that scale. So it could be potentially an extremely powerful technique, which basically guarantees a kill on Loki. That's a pretty cool idea if they go down that road. That's definitely something that's plausible if we are in fact going to get a draw this round. I know we've been harping on that for a long time now, but now it almost seems more likely than ever based on the ability Simo has. But my boy Mason here put up a good argument in the comments for why he does not think Simo would do something like this. It's because he made a promise to his dog that he was going to return. So he does not think that Simo is going into this with the intention of sacrificing himself. But sometimes when you're faced with something, decisions are made, right? So I do think it's still possible, but Simo definitely has more plans in store for defeating Loki without actually having to take himself out at the same time. As far as Apocalypse of the Gods goes, we got the big reveal last chapter that Wukong was going to be fighting for humanity effectively going forward in the tournament. If he wins the tournament and he made the proclamation, he is going to cancel the eradication of humanity, seemingly because of the words of Prometheus and the remembrance of his longtime friend, though we saw a little bit in the last chapter. But that is a huge plot point going forward. Now that is going to be super interesting, especially in the second round matchup, which is going to be against Kukulin, because Kukulin is part human, he's a demigod, and he's already hated by the gods. So I wonder what the crowd will react like, given that they already do not like Kukulin. But now they're going to be against Wukong as well because he's obviously fighting for humanity. So that round is going to be epic. I really can't wait for that round, but we're a long ways off from that. Our next fight should be Suzaku, the Vermilion Bird, versus Indra. Indra, of course, is from Shiva's pantheon. We saw him in the backstory. We didn't get a full-fledged fight, but we know he lost to Rudra. But he's always had a really cool design, and there was some hints to him actually wielding lightning as a power. So this fight could be really awesome, especially with this panel from last chapter, which gave us the foreshadowing that Suzaku's reasoning and resolve for fighting in this tournament is important. This should be a pretty good fight, especially because a lot of people think that they're going to try to make Indra look good in this, otherwise why put him in this tournament? Given that obviously we didn't get to see much of him in the backstory, it would make Shiva look better the better Indra does in this tournament. So I think that this is a decently unpredictable matchup. I'm excited for it, excited to see Indra fight. Really interested in Suzaku because I don't really know anything about the guy. And it'll be really interesting to gauge how invested people get into this fight, given that these are two less popular characters than we've seen in the previous 2 rounds. Obviously with like Sun Wukong, Ra, Kukulin in those last chapters. This will serve as a better metric to see how many people really got hooked on the series. Lastly, quickly, I wanted to touch on a couple of the Record of Ragnarok creators' interview answers that they gave that dropped alongside the chapters. Nothing too crazy was in them, but we did get this insane statement for Adam, which basically comes from the illustrator, where he says that Adam is without a doubt the strongest human. At least that's what initial translations look like. And a lot of people won't think that that's a big deal because a lot of people assume Adam is the strongest anyway. But that's a pretty great statement from one of the creators, as there's 2 authors that get credited and one guy is the illustrator, the guy that draws the paneling. This is from the illustrator. In the Q&A, they were also asked about some of their potential dream matchups, to which the one that really caught my eye was one of the authors thought that Jack the Ripper versus Beelzebub would have been a great fight, as obviously Jack is extremely cunning and Beelzebub is extremely smart. I agree with that. We already got to see Beelzebub against somebody that's extremely smart in Tesla, but there's a little bit of a difference between the way Tesla would fight and the way Jack would fight. Tesla is trying to outsmart you, but Jack is trying to beat you any means with his cunning. So it's a little bit different. One of them is more deceitful, one of them is more by the book, so to speak. Like Tesla's a goody two-shoes, so that fight would really be cool to see play out on a cerebral level. One of the creators did say that they would also like to see Aphrodite versus Amaterasu, which is interesting because Aphrodite was initially supposed to fight in the outlines of the story before it was published, but then they ended up changing that direction. We are going to get to see the first female fight in the Record of Ragnarok series, however, with Morrigan in the Apocalypse of the Gods tournament, as she is going to be fighting Neza in the next round after Indra and Suzaku. So we'll be looking forward to all that. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you're subscribed. Drop a like on the channel so you don't miss any of the coverage. We're going to be coming up on that in the next coming weeks for both the Record of Ragnarok main series and the Apocalypse of the Gods coverage. I will see you guys then. Peace.